Om. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Right. So we are in Amrit Anubhav, chapter 5, verse number 11 or 10, somewhere. Yeah, so the examples that was given was with reference to the drops may appear different while raining. However, where they fall, is there anything other than homogeneous water? Or water is referred to drops while raining to maintain that it is other than the total water. However, is it anything other than water when it has fallen? So, whether the water expresses as a drop, as a lake, as a river, as a well, as a pond, it's still water, it's still H2O, or even a steam, it is still H2O. So it has never, we may call it by different names, but the water has never left its essential nature. Point to be noted. Water has is never divorced from its essential nature. So it does not suffer as a well or a drop or as a pond or a river. It never suffers because it is H2O. Similarly, whatever you may express as waker, dreamer, sleeper, as husband, wife, brother, sister, are you aware of your true nature? Then there is no suffering. If the river forgets that it is the river, it is the water, and thinks of itself as a river, then urgency to meet the drop forgets that it is water and it is falling down. Oh, save me, pahi mam, pahi prabho. If the water is getting evaporated, complaining, I don't want to be separate from you. What is happening to me? Why am I vanishing? Where has my form gone? See? And same thing is happening to you. When you go to sleep, your form is vanishing from your mind. When you wake up, oh, you take on so many additions to accept yourself. Physical, mental, vital, intellectual. This is within this body. What else? Oh, virtual also. Husband, wife are virtual. They are not actual. So virtual, actual, and absolute. Absolute is the true nature. So under any given conditions, are we aware of our essential nature? For that, nothing needs to change. Nothing needs to change. Only recognition of our awareness of our true nature, that I am of the nature of infinity. Sant Jnaneshwara now reverts back to the thought postulated in the first OV that Satchidanand and their absence have no meaning in the absolute. So where are these body, breath, mind, intellect? Because these are add-ons to who you really are. Just like wave, water, ocean, the add-ons to the water are wave, ocean, tide, drop, well, river, pond. These are add-ons. And these add-ons are based on, not from water's point of view. All these add-ons are for someone else whose attention is on a particular form defining that water. You understand? So are you defining yourself with some form, gross or subtle? Get out of it. Accept yourself that you are the all-pervasive one. You are not only pervading this form, but all the forms. See? So many examples Jnaneshwar Maharaj took. Basically, the topic of this chapter is that the words Sat Chit Anand do not define the absolute reality. Sat Chit Anand, because basic premise is Yato Vacho Nivartante Aprapya Manasa Saha. The truth, the reality, the absolute consciousness or pure consciousness cannot be touched by the words, cannot be comprehended by the mind. So when we say Satchidanand, Pai Prabho Mam, oh, help me, guide me. So are these words indicating the truth? No, they are only there to cancel, to checkmate their opposites. And the opposite of Sat is Asat, Chit is Achit, and Anand is Dukkham. So then how do we come to know the self? If this question is coming, then your search for the self is still objective. Wherever there is objective approach, there will be words, and there will be, words are always, if you say up, there will be down created. If you say divine, then undivine is created. If you say Sat, then Achit, Asat is created. So objectivity expresses as duality, because objectivity is in the mind. So when we are talking about this dialogue is going on, where do you know this dialogue is taking place? Is it taking place on the screen? Is it taking place 10 kilometers away from your house? No, this dialogue is taking place in your mind, because your mind is receiving the thoughts, and how does it know these words that you are receiving? By way of thoughts. So when I use the word chit or achit or sat or asat, are you looking at the world to see if that statement is true, or are you seeing? Or wherever, even if you see, it does not matter, because in the end, thought knowledge takes place, or knowledge at the relative level takes place only at the level of mind. It is not taking place outside. Now, what is your angle of approach to it? Are you addicted to the thought knowledge? Or is as a seeker, as a seeker, is your attention on the one in whose presence all the opposites are presenting themselves? Which one are you? The virtual, the actual, or the absolute? Satsang reminds us of this again and again and again and again. And Amrut Anubhav is, how many examples we must have covered by now? Jnaneshwar Maharaj doesn't get tired of giving examples. He is taking care, he's nourishing our vision so compassionately because he understands that these fellows will not understand if I give them straight. So keep giving examples. Give Upama. Yesterday, someone came by the name of Upama in the Bhagavad Satsang. So the Satchidananda and their opposites have no meaning in the absolute consciousness. Now, don't keep absolute consciousness as a concept. No, it is you at this very moment. On one hand, it is transcendental to all the thoughts, and at the same time, it is immanent in and through all the thoughts. Meaning, it is the material with which the thoughts are made, and it is untouched by the thoughts. Just as this you have to sit with. It has to click by grace. The sun is immanent in the heat and light. And yet, sun is transcendental to heat and light because from sun's point of view, there is no heat and light. This is what we studied in Kena Upanishad. That the truth is beyond the known and the unknown. See? Taise asatati ya vyavritti satmane ale shruti jadachiya sabapti chidrupa aise. In the same way, for the negation of non-existence, the existence is referred to, and for the negation of inertness, consciousness is used by the scriptures. See? It is self-explanatory. Now, Swamiji says, in the same way, in the scriptures, truth is referred to as Sat in order to negate Asat only. In reality, both references are inappropriate, so also to remove or negate inertness, the truth is referred to as consciousness to convey that there is nothing like inertness in the world. To convey that there is nothing like inertness in the world. Energy crystallized is matter, matter destroyed is energy. So where is matter? Is matter matter or is energy energy? Dekho. If you give them validity, that body is, mind is, energy is. Energy, we give it an all-inclusive word for energy, and that is what avyakta. That is what is called in this Amrita Anubhav, it is called as Shakti. And that Shakti has got two functions. What is that? To manifest or not, or become unmanifest. These are the two functions it has, isn't it? Now, who is this Shakti? What is this Shakti? Is it independent? Is it dependent? From where is it starting? Oh, it is the potentiality of the Lord. It is inseparable from the Lord. Just as sun, heat and light are inseparable from the sun. Similarly, this Shakti is also inseparable from the Lord. Oh, but the sun is not aware of this Shakti. Oh, but we see the movies in that they show that Shiva is answering to Parvati if she is his Shakti. अब तुम उसको देख देख के अपने, if you create conclusions by watching movies, then stop watching movies. Then stop watching movies, because it's creating a wrong conclusion within your mind. At a gross level, it is okay. You can put it that way. But where we are right now, we are looking, we are pursuing the truth. Right now, as individuals, we are pursuing the truth. We are focused on the truth. And the scripture or the words of Jnaneshwar Maharaj are telling, you are the truth. So don't get lost in the words. And words are always having their opposites. Every word has an opposite. Laptop, no laptop. Talk, no talk. Understanding, no understanding. Seeing, no seeing. There's always opposite. So how do we put it into one nutshell? You only know the truth as Satchidananda. So these are also words and they are opposite. They are there to cancel the opposites, Asat, Achit and Dukkham. From water's point of view, is there anything called iceberg? From water's point of view, from H2O point of view, is there anything called iceberg? Because iceberg or the steam or the wave or the ocean or the froth, these, for us, these are all different things, different expressions. But from water's point of view, they are non-existing, because it alone is. Water alone is. So where is inertness? For what? If we are looking at the water, then inert water is ice, having a shape, form, solidity. Then where is it? If it is nothing but water. Same way, what is that material which has gone into this crystallized form? It is nothing but the consciousness. So now if you want to know the pure consciousness, then you have to give up your obsession with the form. You have to give up your obsession with various terminologies, because every term that you use for the truth will always have an opposite. Even the word truth, immediately untruth. You have heard that word? You use the word divine, undivine. You have heard that word? Then this confusion comes that if I am divine, then what do I do with undivine? If I am the truth, then what do I do with the untruth? If I use the word consciousness, then what do I do with the inertness? You don't have to do anything. They are self-canceling, all of them. You have to go beyond the words. You have to go beyond the thoughts. To indicate that absence or non-existence is an illusion, existence has to be mentioned. To indicate that today's meditation was this, that non-existence, absence, void, nothingness, emptiness, deep sleep, samadhi is an illusion. It's an illusion. So the words sat is used, or what is it? Therefore, is an illusion. Existence has to be mentioned. And what is the meaning of existence? Because we are thinking per people, existence means that which is always. So by bringing your attention to the meaning of existence, not in a general way, but what is the inherent meaning of existence, that which has never gone out of existence is true existence, that which is always, that which does not reduce, that which does not change, that which is simple, always, always, always. Now you look at your experience, if not outside, if you have already worked out the outside, then look at your mind, look at your body, look at your waking, dream, deep sleep. Are they always? Yes, they come and go every day, so they are always. But they come and go, they are not continuous. The waking gives way to dream, the dream gives way to sleep, the sleep gives way to waking again. You are conscious of your body now, but you are not conscious of your body in sleep. So it is not a continuous experience of the body. So nothing at all in this relative world is a permanent experience. And to bring this to our cognition, the scriptures use the word existence, that which is always. Now, if you keep looking outside, you will not find the answer. If you look inside, still you will not find the answer. Then where do you find the answer? No, answers are for the mind. So what are we doing? We are using the word existence. We understand that it is our own nature, but because just as I cannot see the eye, mind cannot think the mind, similarly, I also cannot come to know the I. Then what does it do? It starts disengaging from all the thoughts. Starts disengaging. Starts contemplating on that which cannot be contemplated upon. But it has got no doubt that it is there because I know I am there. But which one am I? Am I the virtual? Am I this body, breath, mind, intellect? Am I this life force which is functioning? Am I the consciousness? But yeah, consciousness is only a word in my mind. I'm not having the direct experience of it. When you have worked everything out, now consciousness is left. Then it is told this word consciousness is only used because of inertness. Now drop that also. Who knows that this word consciousness came and went? Who knows the word existence appeared in your mind and went? Where did it come and go? Oh, it went in the mind. Mind space. Oh, in the mind space. In the Chittakash, the thoughts came and went. What is the nature of Chittakash? Emptiness. So here he says that this Chittakash is an illusion. Emptiness does not exist.
Alert from calendar. Western
So
Australia Day. Western
the
Australia.
moment you
Alert from calendar. Queen's birthday observed. Kokosan.
the moment you come to a disposition where the thoughts are leaving, if our attention, by using the word existence, Sat Chit Anand, knowing that they are only there to cancel the opposites, but what they are indicating is that which is permanently there, that which is always, and that always cannot be out there, it has to be subjective. Then when the last thought goes from your mind, then there will be no void, there will be no emptiness, there will be no darkness. Darkness comes when you are in sleep. Some people who are focused on the darkness, then they become afraid. They start losing their mind, they start hallucinating. So we don't want to go in that direction. When the last thought drops away by itself, that very moment we are with ourselves. Just like for last 5 seconds, I didn't say anything. Were you expectantly waiting for some thought words to come to you, or you were absolutely at ease in yourself as yourself? See? So we don't want to go into the darkness. We don't want to go into the absence, because absence means there is nothing. Then how come you are thinking about absence as an object of contemplation? Absence is not an object. Na sat tat, na asat uchyate. The supreme reality is neither existence nor non-existence. Same way as in Kenopanishad, the supreme reality is neither the known nor the unknown, supporting the both, yet transcendental to both. And yet immanent in both. Don't forget that part. That is reality, and that you are, I am. We are not here to teach the self that, hey, self, you are the self. No, we are here to teach the mind. Oh, mind, you are that. In the mind, the thought I and I am comes. And I am is not able to stay by itself. So it says, I am the body, I am the mind, I am an intellectual, I am a yogi, I am a seeker, I am a father or a mother. And so this I am keeps relating. So we are not addressing the truth. We are addressing the mind. Because the material that has gone into the mind is also that one indivisible truth. Immanent, remember? So the transformation is not of the truth. Transformation is of the mind. This idea that I am a Jivatma is also in the mind only. It's not outside somewhere. This idea that I am a body, that I am a waker, I am a dreamer, I am a sleeper, I am understanding, I am not understanding. It is easy, it is difficult, it is simple, it is divine. This is not going on in the self. This is going on in your mind. And wrong interaction by the mind, by the subject in the mind with the object in the mind is creating all the confusion and stress and strain and ignorance. But what is mind? What is the nature of mind? What is the nature of mind? Pure consciousness. Mind is nothing but pure consciousness. So by thinking about the mind, there are various approaches. But within that mind, how do you know that you are the mind? Because I say, I am the mind. So I is the object, mind is the object. I is the subject, mind is the object. So somewhere deep inside, you know, you are other than the mind. That you are the witness of the mind. And that is your natural position all the time in the relative. See? When Siddha Purusha like Sant Ekanath or Sant Jnaneshwara were able to make the so-called inert objects come alive, they demonstrated that truth is both inertness and consciousness and is far beyond. Until and unless these Mahatmas, Satya Sai Baba, etc., because they have come to recognize that pure consciousness which expresses as consciousness and matter, but the material that has gone into the consciousness, relative conscious, that consciousness which is with reference to matter, we are talking about that, which is mind. So the material that has gone into the consciousness is pure consciousness. The material out of which the matter is made is also the pure consciousness. Until unless this disposition is not gained, till then these type of miracles don't happen. Like Sant Jnaneshwar Maharaj, the sister said, Dada, let's take we should not make such a grandfatherly figure who is 1400 years old to come to us. We should go and meet him. So he says, okay. She says, why don't you take let's go on the wall. She was small, 6, 7, 8-year-old. For her, it's all game. And Jnaneshwar Maharaj, just like you tap the horse with your whip and it starts running, the wall flew. Satya Sai Baba was able to manifest or unmanifest anything. See? And so also many Mahatmas. So also many Mahatmas. In this way, truth is beyond the reach of words. That's how we started today's talk, is beyond the reach of words. What Satchidananda means in its totality is different from the meaning conveyed by the 3 separate words. So when you, even as an individual, the 3 words that I am awake, I have the experience, I am the waker right now, I was a dreamer in sleep, I am the dreamer in dream and sleeper in sleep. Do these 3 words define you completely? No. Each one has a specific experience attached to it. But who are you? You are the one who expressed through all those 3, yet are beyond the 3. Isn't it? Same way. Same way. These 3 words, Satchidanand, by themselves are inert, are incomplete. And therefore, what they are indicating, what the words Satchidananda are indicating is other than the terms Sat, Chit and Ananda. Very important point to note here, which we'll repeat many times, is the words cannot reveal the truth. Truth is self-revealed by grace. That self-revealing is grace. Then what are we doing by using the words? We are stupid. We don't know how not to think. So we are thinking, which will lead to no thinking. All these terms, the topics that we are studying, they are all contradictory to each other. So mind is trying to work out, very sincerely it is trying to work out. And sometimes it says also, I understood, but actually it has not understood anything. We have to get out of that also, that I understood or not understood, because the moment you say understand, then there is fear of not understanding. Kenopanishad again. I have come to know very well. You don't know anything. If you come to know very well, you don't know, not understood anything. Huh? So it's a very, 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 very fine dissection of the mind. And the dissection is only between the known and the unknown. The dissection is only between the consciousness and matter. The dissection is only between the opposites, between the subject and object. But who you essentially are, that cannot be dissected. See? So while dissection is taking place of consciousness and matter, for example, again our attention is brought. Who knows that this dissection is going on? This Vivek is going on? Yeah, I know. Oh, you are that one. Oh, but I thought I was the consciousness separate to matter. No, no, you know consciousness and matter are separate. Then where do you know consciousness and matter? In the mind. Then who are you who knows that there is consciousness and matter? Oh, must be other than the two. We are so entangled in our own notions, beliefs, conclusions, convictions, ideas, imaginations, projections, that by ourselves, without guidance, we are unable to find the way out. Like that cat entangled in the wool and then keeps meow, 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 help me. It was playing, but it got entangled. We also think, give value to some object or person or experience, and we get entangled. Why? How? By creating a memory, by creating an impression, which then again appears as desire. And this is going on. We have to cut it somewhere. Now, as we are going through this text, what memory can you make? What conclusion have you made till now? Whether it was the example of water and the ice, or water with various forms, or that water is, or the sun doesn't know its own potentiality as heat and light, what conclusion did you make? Objectively, you may have made, but subjectively, can you make any conclusion? If you say objectively, sun does not know the heat and light, it's only in your mind you are imagining. Have you taken the position of the sun? Have you become the sun to know that there is no heat and light? Have you had a direct experience of it? Then it is only your imagining that you have understood. If you say that, oh, all the bodies of water are nothing but water, but have you taken the position of water? Are you at one ment with the water to see what would be the disposition of water? Or it is just an imaginary understanding that, yeah, I understand. See? You know how to do it. When you come across patients, when you come across friends, relatives, if someone is in pain, or someone is suffering because of someone's death or disease or hunger, the mother knows. She is so at one ment with the child, she knows how hungry he must be or she must be. You can feel the pain of other. That is called empathy, isn't it? You can feel the pain, you can feel the joy. But there's 7 billion, 8 billion people on the earth. Whom do you feel the pain and joy of? Are you feeling the pain and joy of all the people who are getting, who are dying because of COVID? No, because none of them is yours. You're not included them in your definition of I. So those whom you have included in your definition of I, when they feel pain, you feel pain because you empathize, you are able to be at one with them. See? Because we are not able to see everything as from one standpoint, that all standpoints are included in the one. That is empathy. That is true compassion. That is kripa. That is unconditional love. So if in a room people are sitting and each one is drawing what they are looking, they will all draw something different to each other. But the teacher who has asked them, he knows that all of them are correct. Individually they are against, they are saying, oh, you are wrong, you are wrong, you are wrong, only I am right. But teacher knows everyone is right. Non-recognition of this all-inclusive, or that one without a second, the truth, the reality, is what is creating all the friction in the society, is what is creating friction in your mind also, because that society is nothing but a projection of your mind. So stop, find a way out. The answer is not out there in the society. Answer is up in here, between the two ears. Answer is in your mind. Answer is not even there, but at least come to the mind, like we are in the satsang right now. But in this satsang, go beyond the mind and be the eternal truth. And see how that one truth is doing the leela of subject and object. And that subject and object is then getting projected out into the whole world. See, that is called leela, that is the play, that is the divine sport of one with one. In this way, truth is beyond the reach of words. What Satchidananda means in its totality is different from the meaning conveyed by the three separate words, that is Satchit and Ananda. When these words come to mean I, then alone is contemplation of the truth complete. I not as just a mere thought. Initially, it will begin with thought. The first indication that you are not the crystallized body comes at the Anahat Chakra. A firm abidance that I am, in spite of all distractions, in spite of all thoughts, in spite of all forms, and you are unshakable. It comes at the Vishuddhi Chakra. That is the empty space. That is like Pratyahar. Not Pratyahar actually. But that is where Vivek Khyati has happened. Vivek Khyati means where the discrimination, it's unshakable discrimination now. You will not, but there is a possibility, if you don't continue further, you can fall back. See? Therefore, these words used in the scriptures, only the words are used in the scriptures only to remove the load of unworthy stuff that we carry in the term of illusions of consciousness vis-a-vis inertness, existence versus non-existence. So why are we, just like in our Upanishads, the example is given while you are walking on a jungle path, Pagdandi, and you get pricked by a thorn, then what are you going to do? Where are you going to get the pincers from? No, Then what do? You take another thorn and you pry it out from your foot. And then what do? You throw both of them away. You don't fall in love with the thorn that has removed the prick thorn. You throw both of them away. So what are we doing? What are scriptures doing for us? We have collected unwanted data. So they are like clean my Mac. Scriptures are like my clean my Mac. You bring it, go. It removes all the unwanted junk, unwanted files. The cache is emptied. So where is our cache? C-A-C-H-E, not C-A-C-S-H. We are not talking about cache. Cache, okay, cache. It's in our mind. How? By way of what? By way of memories, desires, impressions, likes, dislikes, unwanted conclusions, inverted conclusions about life, wrong notions about life. Then when we come across scriptures, what they start doing? They start slowly by slowly, depending upon your ability, each one's ability. What is the ability? Ability to be the I. To that, directly proportional to that, the disk will start getting cleared up. That is what. So just like we picked a thorn to remove the thorn, we are using words. Words are nothing but appearing as thoughts. So we are using the scriptural thoughts to remove the unwanted thoughts from the mind. Just like I used one program called Clean My Mac to clean the Mac. Mac also runs on a program only. Without a program, it cannot function. But then, why couldn't it clean itself? It didn't have the ability. So then what do? I install another app, another program. And what is this? This program cleans the whole thing up. So what are we doing? We are downloading the scriptures, interacting with the scriptures in such a manner that all unwanted programs in our mind, conclusions in our mind, notions in our mind, memories of our mind, desires of our mind. In other words, the entire experience of waking, dreaming, deep sleep, samadhi, that I am someone, that I was born, that I'm going to die, that I have a past, I have a future, that I'm an individual. All these are unwanted programs that by default, because you are born, so they you got installed. They got installed in your mind by way of parents, by way of education, by way of interacting with the friends, relatives, society. By the environment uploaded it into you without you knowing. But somewhere you must have interacted with it and accepted it because you didn't know any better. But when grace comes, we come across the scriptures, and this scriptures acts as a thorn to remove the other thorn, which is the unwanted data within our mind. Then what do? Now don't hold on to this. Throw this also. But throw it only after you have completely removed the unwanted data. And what are the scriptures saying? The scriptures are saying that this word Satchidananda is only to remove the Asat, Achit and Dukkham. So after you have removed the unwanted Asat, Achit and Dukkham, now you throw away the Satchidananda word also. You understand? And who knows, I threw the first one. That means you were there when the first thing was being thrown. And now do not get attached to the Satchidanand. Understand the principle. They are also thoughts. And thoughts cannot reveal the truth. Then how will I come to know? Arey, you don't need to come to know. You are. You don't need words to be. You are in spite of the thoughts. You are self-established. The self is self-established. The self is self-illuminating. The self is self-knowing. The self is self-existing. It doesn't need a support of a word to be established. It doesn't need an experience to be. Therefore, it is told it's a knowing less knowing. It is an experience less experience. It is that which is beyond cause and effect. Who? We are talking about the self that you are. So this extreme fine-tuning is required. And this fine-tuning is only, on one hand, initially we use the words for fine-tuning, but when we reach the climax, we drop the words also. Because we become available, or at least we can intuit that what the words are indicating is the me. And if I keep wanting an experience of myself, I am knocking on the wrong door. How can the vision of our eyes have the experience of the eyes? Not possible. But does it mean that the eye is not existing? Eye is always, no? Without eyes, the vision will not express. It is like that. We want to know the self, have the experience of the self, but it is not possible. But does it mean that the self is not? No, you are. That's why you are talking. That's why you are trying. That's why you are. But is that trying, seeking in the manner which will bring about? I can't even use that, bring about. Which will, all that trying will self-cancel itself, and what will remain is you. Anyway, enough of that. The same principle applies to the use of the word Ananda also. Dukkha che nisarvanashe urale te sukha aise nigadile nishwase prabhu cheni. He says, the happiness or joy in referring to the absence or negation of miseries or sorrow is the declaration of the Vedas. So remember one thing. What did we just now say? That self is self-established. So no process, no amount of chanting, no amount of karma, no amount of efforts, no amount of doing anything, no amount of contemplation can make the truth happen. Why? Truth is always. Truth is always. Then why are we doing all this? Only because we think we are the mind and we feel that we have to do something. And as a result of this doing, thinking, contemplating, what are we trying to achieve? We are canceling all the opposites and throwing them away. That's all we are doing. Truth is self-established. No amount of processes in your mind and intellect can ever reveal the truth. Then what are these processes for? For removing all wrong conclusions in your intellect. And what is the conclusion? That I think I can have the experience. I want the experience of the self. I want the experience of the God. I want to surrender. We use these words so liberally. You cannot surrender. It is not possible for you to surrender. I am going to meditate. I meditate every day. Very sincerely, they say. You cannot meditate. Meditation happens. Surrender happens. Sharanagati happens. It is not the something to be achieved by an ego. Ego is saying, I surrendered to the Lord in the meditation. Then the one who is saying that I surrendered, it's a big ego then. The one who has surrendered never claims that he has surrendered. The one who sleeps never claims that he has slept because he is unavailable. See? So to remove this corruption is and that corruption, that objectivity in the mind. Objectivity, mind is nothing but objectivity. Mind is so smart, or its nature is such, that it has objectified the self also. How it has objectified the self? As I. I thought. The mind has done that. It is its nature. It has objectified the infinite consciousness that we are as the I thought. But I thought cannot exist by itself. So that thought also immediately comes about. And the drama begins. And the drama begins. And this drama, if not recognized properly, is dukkham. Is dukkham. Accepting duality as the truth is dukkham. Then what is to be done? I can't stop the mind from expressing as aham and idam. I can't stop the mind from expressing as subject and object and the instruments. Let it. Let it. You remain the witness, undisturbed, unaffected, uninfluenced, unentangled. That's how Mahatmas are living. That's how Jnaneshwar Maharaj is living. They also wake up, they also go to sleep, they also get hungry, they also go for a walk, they also go for shushu shishi, but they don't get affected. See? For that, we have to take the position that we are other than the mind, and yet, and it is not only this mind. Then when we are other than the mind, then mind is a principle. It is not something in this body. We think there is mind one per person. No, it is one mind expressing through all the people in the waking, just like it is one mind which is expressing through all the people in the dream. So is true here also. So is true here also. This will become self-evident if the mind is purified. It will not be evident if the mind is crystallized into individuality. Crystallization, I am the body. So start melting. Simple technique hai, but we will make it complicated by overthinking. I'm trying to simplify as much as I can. This is the declaration of the Vedas, which were born out of the breath of God, namely, happiness is referred to as that which remains after misery is removed or destroyed. Sukha is thus only with reference to dukkham. Again, just as existence, non-existence, chitta, inertness, sukham, dukkham. Ananda, dukkham. Sukha, dukkham. These are only two concepts of the mind. And they appear only because we are divorced from the realization that the material that has gone into the mind is nothing but that infinite truth or divinity. Where we take mind to be real and get identified with it, that's where the problem begins. You remain untouched, remain the transcendental one, remain the pure one, and allow the mind to do what it is doing. In Bhagavad Gita, we saw, what was it? Body, the agent, the doer, the indriyas, the jnanendriyas and karmendriyas, the efforts, and the devas. These 5 things are propelling the activity. There's no doer, there's no person there. There's no person there. It's like the iron filings get activated in the presence of the mother magnet. It's like when you take a comb, put it through your hair, and you put some small pieces of paper on the table, and you take your take your comb over it, they will jump up and down. From where did the activity get introduced in those inert paper? There's no life in it. How come there is movement? So this premise that one needs to be alive in order to move again is cancelled. Earth is moving, it is not alive. See? So thoughts are not alive, thoughts are inert. So when we say movement, activity, activities of the mind. What is mind's activity? Thoughts. Thoughts are inert. They get activated. Because of what? You think a person, what do you call? Yeah, the inert objects get activated. That's all. They're self-propelling. It has got nothing to do with you. So let the mind function. You check out of that. Similarly, aisi sadadi pratiyogiye asadadi teen hi iye lotita zhali traye sattadike. In this way, terms like existence, etc., are meant for the cancellation of non-existence, etc. This is how terms like existence, etc., have come into being. So the scriptures have brought about these positive words only to cancel the negative words. That's all. In the same way, asat, achit, dukkham have been negated by the use of their opposite, sat, chid, ananda. From the point of truth, the otherness does not exist. Therefore, to whom will truth declare I am existence? Very, very subtle point. If you are subjective in your approach at this moment, you can be that. To whom will the truth declare I am existence? Otherness is there where there is duality. But if duality is not there, then who will declare to whom? Who will declare to whom? After a divorce, does a man go around saying, I am divorced? What is your name? I am the divorced Mr. So-and-so. Like they say, late. What is the name of your father? Late Mr. So-and-so. Late डालने की क्या जरूरत है? उसी तरह से divorced so-and-so. No, you don't say you are divorced. You continue to be. The otherness, from the point of truth, the otherness does not exist. Otherness is part and parcel, is the basic premise of the mind. Mind means otherness. Mind means differences. Mind means multiplicity. Mind means duality. Mind means subject versus object. To expect anything other than that, you're asking for the unimaginable. Therefore, to whom will the truth declare I am existence? When there is no I in the mind, when there is no one in the mind saying, I am the body, I am the mind, I have understood, I have not understood, I am not, nobody is saying I am Satchidananda, nobody is there to say I am not Asat, Achit, Dukkham. That I is missing in the mind. Because all the words have cancelled each other and gone away. That very moment, you are. That's it. Now, is there a need for that reality to again declare itself to the mind? Hey, I came to know myself. Can it? Can it? Because dialogue means again mind, isn't it? And yes, we hear Mahatmas say that. We hear Mahatmas say that. The mind says, like I told you, Dargah Swami says, no, nothing in this creation can move without my permission. That's not an arrogant statement. All inertness is in the mind only, right? All inertness, all crystallization is in the mind only possible, not outside the mind. So when Mahatmas, by their sankalpa is also a thought in the mind. The objects are also thought in the mind. And they are able to manifest something or unmanifest something. It is happening. It is, without mind, it cannot happen. But there is no doer of it. There is no doer. Only then it happens. This is what Bhagwan Krishna is trying to convey when he says Sukha Dukkha Samay Krutva Labha Labho Jaya Jayo and Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. This pure consciousness is I, wherein Sukha Dukkha and all other pairs of opposites come and go without having any limitation on me, just as water is that infinite truth in which all the waves and oceans come and go without binding the water, without affecting the water. Are we in that disposition that all the thoughts are not having any impact on us? That will be penultimate step. So when we speak about yama niyama in yoga, what is yama? Living in the world in such a manner so that you are not disturbed by thought, word, and deed of any person, nor disturb any person with your thought, word, and deeds. Now see, that is the first step. And the same thing is the last step also. Huh? The first step and the last step is the same. If you take Bhagavad Gita, the first word of Bhagavad Gita is dharma kshetre dharma. And the last word of Bhagavad Gita is nitir matir mama. Mama is the last word. So what is whole Bhagavad Gita about? Mama dharma. And what is your dharma? What is the definition of dharma? What is the definition of dharma? I'm asking.
Righteousness.
Ah,
Righteousness.
okay. Anyone else?
My true nature.
My true nature. Anyone else?
Considering the others as yourself, Swamiji.
Dharma.
Yeah.
After all these studies of so many years, this conclusion.
Yeah, because all are same. So what is the difference?
My question was, what is dharma? So is your attention on the indivisible self or is your attention on multiplicity? If attention is multiplicity, then you will say all are self.
Yes. No, no, it is indivisible.
Understand this. I'll tell you something now, which you have heard it before.
Yes.
Dharma is that without which a thing is not what it is. So
Yeah.
without heat and light, the fire cannot be called fire. Without the liquidity or the wetness or taste, the water cannot be called a water. What is that without which you will not be called you? Life, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what is your mama dharma, what Bhagavad Gita is talking about? There, the scenario is different. He is in the middle of the battlefield, yet Bhagwan is there. He needs to know that he is the warrior. But here we are not fighting with anyone in this text. So what is mama dharma? Mama dharma here is, or in Bhagavad Gita for that matter, is to know your, in this particular context, to know what is your nature, what is your true nature. Mama dharma. If you sit here interacting with the scripture, listening to the scripture as a mother, as a wife, as a husband, as a body, as and while listening, dream, I wish it had happened to me before, then we are losing the plot. Your dharma at this very moment is to be who you already are. Or if you are not, if that is tough ask, at least be contemplative about what is that without which I will not be me? What is that which is expressing through this body, which is not present in a dead body? What is that? Don't give it a name. Scriptures give it a name: life, consciousness, this, that. We want to go beyond consciousness, words, no? So is it something that you can know, or is it you only, on which you have pasted, like a stamp is pasted on the envelope, you have pasted body, breath, mind, intellect on that envelope of consciousness that you essentially are. This pure consciousness is I, wherein Sukha, Dukkha, and all other pairs of opposite come and go without having any limitations on me, just as all the thoughts, all the waves and oceans, all the drops falling into the waters do not have any impact on the water. The impact is available to be observed by someone other than water, but not for the water. Water is ever only as water. You may call it ocean, you may call it wave, you may call it, because your attention is on form. You may call it air, fire, water, earth, because your attention is on some experience. Air, fire, water, earth. But from space point of view, it alone is. The one who knows that every day waker, dreamer, sleeper, and the waking world, dream world, and absence of theirs is coming and going every day, that fellow has never become absent. He's always present. Because I ask you this question anytime during the day, yeah, I know I had the experience of waking, dream, deep sleep yesterday. The one who is answering this, yes, I know that these three happened. He cannot be the waker, he cannot be the dreamer, he cannot be the sleeper, nor he can be the meditator. He is the transcendental one. But we are unable to catch that. Because the moment we make, yes, I know, and immediately we are back into the mind, back into the individuality. But we never contemplate that who answered this. If waker cannot go into the dream and it cannot go into the sleep, then who answered this question? See? Sirf mundi hila dete. Yes, I understand. What have we understood? Nothing we have understood. Because it's not something that can be understood also. So in other words, here what Swamiji is saying is, this pure consciousness is I, wherein Sukha, Dukkha, and all other pairs of opposites, waker, waking world, dreamer, dream world, all the opposites come and go, but they do not make an impact on the conscious principle that I am, in essence. Thus, the more we are able to drop the words, the less will we struggle with the meaning and instead glide into that which is meant, where there is no effort, will glide into effortlessness. Just like we glide into sleep, we melt into thinking of it, of the sleep, we get absorbed effortlessly into sleep. Then if that is possible, you think of husband, you glide into husband and express as wife, effortless. And vice versa. No, I have to think I'm a wife, or what am I? No, I have to give up my motherhood, then I'll become the wife. No, Instantaneously it happens. Why is it difficult when it comes to being the truth? Why so much struggle? Because we are in the mind. That's why the struggle. Get out of the mind. Take the position of the witness. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Maintain the equanimity. And now that is not a special event. In and through your life, we have to keep practicing this samatvam. Not be disturbed by the pain, not be disturbed by no pain, not be excited with it, not be not get irritated when hunger comes, and not be happy when hunger is satiated. Samatvam, maintain the equanimity. When we have practiced it sufficiently, then we will not be addicted to thinking or not thinking. There also will remain equanimous then. See? Because that will automatically happen because you have been practicing it in the outside, then on with regards to your body, then with regards to breath, then with regards to your emotions, then with regards to your thoughts also. It is a foregone conclusion. But you have to start somewhere. And it must be a constant, alert, vigilant awareness to be equanimous, to be unaffected. And to be equanimous does not mean that you can't laugh and you can't be angry, or mind will do whatever it has to do. It is already programmed to behave in a particular way in certain situations. What can you do? You don't worry about the mind. You maintain that you are not disturbed from inside. That you are the watcher, you are the witness. Where there is no effort, but only being. Real contemplation is in silence. The moment word emerges, the world begins. That was the experience of Brahmaji also. The moment word expressed, remember in Bhagavad, he contemplated on the silence. That silence appeared as the Omkar. That Omkar became the vowels, A, A, E, E. Then the vowels interacted with each other. They are natural sounds. They interacted with each other. And then the consonants came about. And each consonant, all the vowels are the various energies within the universe. And all the consonants are the objects within the universe, or the various aspects of the universe. See? So, what was there when Brahmaji came into existence? Silence. He got afraid. Who? Brahmaji got afraid of the silence. Who am I? Where am I? What am I? Why have I come? What is my job? What I have to do? We also, little bit silence, immediately these thoughts come into our mind, and then we again come back into the mind and then run to catch the train. Or go run to the job, or go and drink a water, or increase the heater, or take a sip of water, because we are unable to sit in silence. And I'm not talking about the physical silence. I'm talking about within. That silence is udasinata, indifference to everything. Then you are in silence. In that silence, when we are indifferent to all the thoughts, all the duality in our mind, then the truth will reveal. It has got no choice because you are available, you are qualified then. Now, to be qualified, do whatever is required from wherever you are. Satsang is going on, that is true, but that's once a week or whatever times, how many times. But still there are so many hours and hours and hours. This lecture is only, satsang is only for 1.5 hours. What about the rest of the 22 hours, 22.5 hours? Live in awareness. And all the time you cannot live in awareness because that's not your natural disposition you are not practiced it. So then what to do? Somewhere start doing japa with joy. Whatever you are doing, do it with joy. In that joy, you will automatically become the witness because there's nothing to do, nothing to gain, as Swamiji says. You're doing it just as an expression of joy. So listen also like that. Do also whatever. Satchidananda or their opposites are valid only so long as one is in the area of parokshata, indirect knowledge. Indirect knowledge is only in the mind. Parokshata is where differences are. Differences are only in the mind. Subject versus object. Subject becomes the experiencer and object becomes the experienced. That is called parokshata. And what is the realization? What is abiding in the self? Aparoksha anubhuti, where aparoksha, direct experience, no medium in between, no differences. The moment one understands that what is meant is the pure I, thereafter, whichever words are used, they have no more significance. When the 4 speeches are transcended, then alone the truth is revealed. We have talked about the 4 speeches in the 3rd chapter. We'll take it from here in our next class. Satsang on one hand, and rest of the time, apply these, what you have understood, what has gelled in you. Be conscious, be aware for the rest of the day, for the rest of the week. Do everything in awareness. That's the name of the game. With alertness, with poise, not by default, including speaking, including walking, including eating. Then that will translate that you will be alert about your thoughts also. You can't be alert about thoughts without first being alert about what is going on in the world. But this is too much. Okay, then take the name of the Lord. Vaikhari madhyama pashyanti para. Everything, what I am explaining in so many words, when you start doing the mantra japa, automatically it will start happening. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Sit quietly for a moment.